I'm going for a jog.
Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Baths album, Obsidian. Baths is the pseudonym of Will Wiesenfeld. He is a songwriter, singer, producer, and his music made a relatively big splash back in 2010 through the full-length LP Cerulean out on ANTICON Records. A very colorful album loaded with beats that are very compressed, wonky, as well as glitchy, and take a ton of influence from pop music as well as hip-hop music. It was a sound that was really popular during that year but has waned a little bit in buzz since then. There are actually quite a few records that year that had a pretty buzzy glitch hop vibe to them. People like Toki Monster Teebs, as well as No Such Thing had notable releases. However, on this new LP, Baths does not go back to his old ways, to his old sound on his full-length debut. Instead, this new LP goes in a direction that brings together indie electronic music, glitch pop, and occasionally Will tones the electronics down and raps these songs in piano and strings, much more acoustic instrumentation. And most importantly, he really comes through on this album and flexes those singer-songwriter muscles, writing songs that not only have a lot of lyrics and his vocals right up front and center, but verses and choruses. So without question, on Obsidian, Will's vocal delivery and vocal personality plays a much larger role. While this album is not as psychedelic or as otherworldly or maybe even as strange or as novel as Cerulean, Baths does keep the sound play and some of the experimentation up. There are lots of odd, speedy, almost unpredictable and glitchy pieces of percussion that pop up in nearly unpredictable places throughout many of these beats. However, if there is a downside to some of the percussion right off the bat on this LP, it is not as heavy, bassy, or beefy as some of the percussion on Cerulean. It definitely pales in comparison in terms of just resonance. Still, there is detail in these more subtle beats that Baths pulls together, like on the track Incompatible, which has a very, very dense, complex rhythm to it. It is a difficult beat, it's a difficult groove, and with the piano, the strings, and the acoustic guitar laid into this track, there's a serious sense of I guess you could say, wonderment. It's got a bit of an old world feel to it in a way. I'm thinking like trees, streams, rocks, animals sort of dancing by, medieval castles, magic, sorcery, the dark arts. Whether a track on here seems to emphasize acoustic instrumentation over electronic or vice versa, the production chops that Baths showcased on Cerulean are still there. They just show up in different ways. If there is an issue that's keeping me from loving this LP though, that I have to admit, it's that I'm not as thrilled with Will as a songwriter or really a singer. For one, Will's voice, to my ears, is effeminately sharp with its tone, and it's so much so that it feels sort of zany to me at times. Not only that, but Will's vocals are mixed so high above a lot of the other electronics on these songs that it really overpowers some of the beats on this thing, making it difficult to appreciate these songs for the good production that's in the background. And there are tracks on here where the instrumentals do get so simple and straightforward that there isn't much else to observe but the vocals and the songwriting that Baths is trying to pull together, like the song No Eyes, which features a kind of slow kick snare pattern that kind of reminds me of Nine Inch Nails' track Closer. And like that track, this one has a particular obsession with sex. Sex is kind of a fix in this song. I mean, the chorus pretty much is, "Come and fuck me." The track is pretty much a poppy observation of the separation between love and physical relations, which is a fine subject matter to write a song about. I just find to be ever so slightly obnoxious, kind of annoying. Typically, Will's vocals appeared on his previous material as an additional sound, or just something that was adding a little extra color. In my opinion, it added an edge to a lot of his songs, even though at the time they were kind of off the wall still. I do appreciate that there is a little bit of a theatrical element going on here, something that feels sort of Antony and the Johnsons or even Bjork inspired at times. When Baths really loses me on this LP, it's when there is really no wonderment or much of anything interesting in the instrumental whatsoever, really. It's Baths not doing glitch hop or even doing glitch pop, but instead just making middle-of-the-road indie electronic music that reminds me of like Dintal, like the song Miasma Sky. However, there are some bright spots, there are some moments, there are some highlights that I do dig on this LP, like the song Ironworks, which in my opinion is so beautifully arranged and covered in extra instrumentation, most notably the strings. It's so well arranged, it's impossible to deny. And the song OSSUARY. The vocals on this track are toned down a little bit to a point where I can really not only tolerate them, but enjoy them. And the slow pace of the beat on this thing with the driving bass line kind of reminds me of like a 90s trip hop tune. And surprisingly, I really liked the dark, murky wall of instrumentation on the song No Past and the throbbing beat on this thing. It's a little tortured. The interjecting piano phrases that totally break the vibe of the song and transition back into it quickly are pretty interesting as well. You'd think they would stick out and sort of ruin the flow of the track, but they sort of enhance how eccentric Baths can be when he puts his mind to it. Overall, this is a pretty decent mixed bag of tracks. Baths has really used this album, in my opinion, as kind of a training ground, a firing range, a test for his singing-songwriting chops as opposed to what we already know he can do as a producer. And there are some hits, there are some misses, and there are songs that really sort of breeze by me and don't stick with me in any way, shape, or form. I'm feeling a light to decent 6 on this thing. If you've given it a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. This review is my opinion. If you don't like it, here's a straw. I want to give a shout out to Jermaine, Carrie, Jackie, Vine, and Cuts on Your Thumb. Only the strong subscribe. All mistakes were intentional. Anthony Fantano, Baths, Obsidian. Forever.